Are you looking for an organized way to outline and plan your story before you write it? If so, then I have a handy checklist for you to check out. Be sure to stick around to the end of this video for this week's Save Your Sanity quick tip. Hello and welcome to my channel where I share some of my indie author experiences and some graphic design tutorials that help you with your social media posts and marketing, as well as creating your own book swag like stickers, magnet buttons, pins, bookmarks, all kinds of stuff. My name is Kimberly Grymes and I am a young adult science fiction and fantasy author. Isildes and the Red Umber Forest are both available to buy. Links are in the description below. You can also read the Red Umber Forest companion novella to Isildes when you sign up for my newsletter. Isildes is also available as an audiobook through Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. I've also published 2 short stories in 2 different anthology books, a futuristic story called LYP-1 in Frontiers, Then, Now, and Beyond, and more recently, an origin short story about a young Miss Hannigan from Annie. That story is called Little Orphan Aggie and can be found in the Rebel Diaries anthology. Okay, with Camp NaNoWriMo right around the corner, I thought it would be fun to share with you the Preptober checklist I created and sell on my Etsy page. I designed and created this checklist with Inkscape, because you guys know how much I love Inkscape, and then imported the design into a Word document, and then saved the document as a PDF, which I then use in my Etsy listing. The Preptober name comes from combining prep with October. Pretty self-explanatory. And it's meant to motivate writers to get ready to write 50,000 words in November during the National Novel Writing Month, also known as NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo became so popular that the creators decided to host a similar writing month, but during the spring. This year, Camp NaNoWriMo is in April and July. So that means the Preptober months are in March and June. You don't have to do any prepping if you don't want, but it does help. And you also don't have to write 50,000 words during NaNoWriMo. The point is to get writers together and motivate one another to write as much as they can for the project they're working on. It's hard for me to write every single day or even fast draft, but it's something I've been working on. And I definitely plan on doing a separate video to talk about my drafting process. Today, I wanted to share with you a simple outlining and planning checklist that is meant to last over the span of 4 weeks before NaNoWriMo or Camp NaNoWriMo starts. There are 2 goals that repeat each week, and that's to check in with your writing friends and to keep a clean workspace. There are community forums on the NaNoWriMo website where people post looking to join or that they've created a writing group for other people to join. And it's based usually on genre. And I recommend that's a good starting place to look for if you're looking to join a writing group. These aren't necessarily critiquing groups, so don't expect to be swapping chapters. They're more for motivational reasons. Writers can interact and chat directly on the NaNoWriMo website, or from what I've seen, they generally migrate over to Discord or create a private Facebook group. Checking in and cheering each other on is probably my favorite part about participating in NaNoWriMo. I may not reach my 50,000 word goal, but I do make some great connections within the writing community. The second task that repeats each week on this checklist is to keep a clean workspace. A messy space can cause distractions, and you want as little distractions or things to happen that'll take you away from your writing. Writing 50,000 words takes dedication and discipline when sticking to a writing schedule. Each week has 4 blocks to check off. Block 1 in week 1 is your brain dump. This is where you take a sheet of paper or a blank document on your laptop and just start writing out as many ideas or concept of character goals as you can think of. It doesn't have to make sense, or the ideas don't even have to collaborate. It's just a dump of ideas. If you need writing prompts to get started, I suggest Googling story prompts for your genre. The second checkbox in week 1 I find helpful, and I really thought others might too, is to come up with a general ending of your story. It can be a general ending idea. For example, you know where you want your protagonist to save the world against an evil monster, or you may want your protagonist to get their dream partner at the end of their story. Or you know you want your protagonist to reach a certain destination from their journey. Working backwards, for me, has been an effective tool when planning out my stories. Okay, so the third checkbox in week 1 is creating a character list. Now, this doesn't mean go into depth about each character, who their names are, what they look like, their role in your story. No, that part comes a bit later. This character list is a simple list of your protagonist, antagonist, and supporting characters that you feel are important. Don't get hung up on their appearances or demographics right now. Focus on their personality, what they want in life, and what's stopping them from achieving what they believe will make them happy. And then the final checkbox in week 1 ties into that character list. Building your protagonist character arc early on will help you build the rest of your story because the character arc ties directly to the plot of your story. I have a character worksheet for either an Excel or PDF on my Etsy page. It's a simple worksheet that focuses on the character arc qualities as well as physical appearances. Okay, so before we move on to week 2, check in with your writing friends and clean up that workspace. The first checkbox in week 2 is to take that brain dump and character arc you wrote last week and turn it into a simple outline. This outline doesn't have to be an in-depth outline. That comes later. Right now, just keep things really simple. And don't stress too much about outlining. There's no right or wrong way to make an outline. It does take practice. And the more you outline, the better you'll get at finding what works best for you when planning out your stories. So keep it simple. Even if it's only 3 or 4 bullets in your initial outline of where your story starts, goes, and ends, that's perfectly okay. It's only the second week of your prepping month. Okay, so checkbox number 2 for week 2 is start your research. One of the biggest distractions writers have during NaNoWriMo is stopping to do research. If you know your story takes place on a beach, then do your research about what you might find on all different kinds of beaches. Or if you know your main character is a scientist, then do your research now about equipment they might use, or how being a scientist might affect their personality. Scientists often use complex words or overanalyze situations a lot differently than other characters. Do as much research beforehand. You don't want to stop writing to Google something. Writers have lost hours of good writing time just Googling things. Next, checkbox number 3 for week 2 jumps back to that character list you did in week 1. Now that you've gotten more of your story idea out, you can go back to your character list and dive deeper into who they are and what they look like. I'm a visual person. I need 2 visual images for each of my characters. One to represent their physical appearance and the other to represent their character voice and personality. The second image is usually a character I've seen from a movie or a TV show. Someone I can use as a role model for my character's behaviors and how they speak to others. Creating character appearances and looking images up online takes time, and that's why it's important to do it during the Preptober or outlining phase of writing a story. Which also brings up an important side note. This Preptober checklist can be used at any time, not just right before the NaNoWriMo months. Okay, this last checkbox for week 2 ties into that character list. Since you've already searched up pictures to represent your characters, I thought it might be helpful to create mood boards for each characters too. Mood boards are collections of images to represent not only a character from your story, but they can also represent the mood of your overall story, the world you've created, or how you want your readers to feel while reading your story. Mood boards are great marketing tools and can easily be shared to your author website, social media pages, and even in your newsletters. Your mood board may change after you've started writing the story, but for now, it'll help you create that mood you're looking for and hopefully motivate you to keep writing that story. Okay, before we move on to week 3, don't forget to check in with your writing friends, cheer each other on, and help each other out to stay on track during the Preptober and during the NaNoWriMo months. And don't forget to tidy up that workspace. So we're at the halfway point of the month, and if you follow the checklist, then I'd say you have a good handle on where you want your story and characters to go. Jumping into week 3 involves a bit more writing. The first checkbox of week 3 involves going back to your simple outline and turning it into an elaborate one. Follow a story structure like the 3-act story to plan out each scene. If you're using my 17-scene story outline worksheet that I have on my Etsy page, then use that worksheet to turn your simple outline into a more elaborate one. Each scene is laid out so you can see the progression of your story all on one page. You should have at least one paragraph or a few sentences summarizing the purpose of the scene and how it moves your story forward. Keep in mind that you also want your protagonist's character arc moving forward. Make sure they're behaving and acting according to where they are on their character arc. Now, this next checkbox might be something people want to do right off the bat when they first start their new story. And it's totally okay. I listed it later in the prepping process because as important as world building is to a story, I've discovered that world building for me tends to build itself only after I've gotten to know my characters and their story better. I have a general idea of what the world will be, and that gets included in the brain dump and outlines, but I don't focus too much on the world building until I know what I need from that world. So now you can see why I say week 3 is a lot more writing than other weeks, because you're doing an elaborate outline and you're outlining your world. If you're writing fantasy or science fiction or a dystopian world, then your world building might be more involved than, say, if someone were writing a romance novel or a YA contemporary story. Whatever the case may be, now is the time to organize all your world building thoughts, not while drafting during NaNoWriMo. I recommend keeping your world building notes organized for quick references too. You don't want to be fumbling about when trying to remember what you named a village when you should be writing. The last 2 checkboxes for week 3 are fairly simple, mostly because the first 2 involved a lot of time. Get a notepad. Buy one at the store or order a plain notepad online. You can even use a notepad application on your laptop or phone. You just need a way to take notes for after you've started writing during NaNoWriMo. Having that notebook will help you keep the words flowing onto the paper or document. You don't want to stop writing. If you think of something that you need to look up or you want to come back and fix, write it down in the notepad. Self-discipline is tough, especially because you're going to want to hop on over to Google and just look up the answer to your question right then and there. But don't. Keep writing that story. 50,000 words over a month is usually around 1,667 words a day if you're writing for 30 days straight. If you're only writing during the week, 20 days for the month, then you'll need to write around 2,500 words a day. Something I've heard that helps writers stay motivated is creating a playlist that represents either their characters, their scenes, or overall mood story. So I added a block in week 3 to create a music playlist. It's totally optional, as it doesn't always help writers. I have a few playlists on Spotify dedicated to some of my characters that I add songs to whenever I hear one that reminds me of them. Whenever I'm in the car or at the gym and listening to my playlist, hearing these songs makes me think of my characters, which then motivates me to get my butt home and finish writing that story. And before moving on to the last week of Preptober, remember to check in with your writing friends and clean up that workspace, because after this week, NaNoWriMo or Camp NaNoWriMo starts. Starting week 4, you should have a pretty good idea of your story, start to middle to end, because now you're going to take your elaborate outline one step further. I like doing this next step in a separate document or on a clean sheet of paper. Wherever you do it, just do it separate from the outline. Now, using your elaborate outline as guideline, you're going to write out your chapters starting with chapter 1. Basically, you're going to summarize the point of the chapter and how the story moves forward, like you did in your elaborate outline, but you're going to embellish it a little bit more. You also want to double check to make sure that your protagonist is behaving or saying things that is within their character arc. In addition to summarizing the chapter, and this is totally optional, but I do feel that it helps, you can add a dialogue script, which is basically when you write a character's name followed by a colon mark and then you write what they say, and that's it. No dialogue tags, no setting, description, nothing else, just the character's name and what they say, like a script. And then when you actually go to write, you just kind of fill everything in with the guts. The second checkbox for the last week is to take a blank piece of paper or a new document and write out your story synopsis. This is where you write your story from start to finish. It's kind of that when you pitch your story, you have to give the literary agent a synopsis. The more you think about how you want your story to unfold now rather than later, the easier it will be to write your story. Well, that's the idea, so hopefully it's easier. The third checkbox in the fourth week is to plan ahead. And I recommend getting a paper calendar over using an electronic one. This way you can hang it right in front of your face or put it on top of your desk, forcing you to look at it. Then plan out your writing schedule and be sure to set reasonable goals and writing times. Spread your writing time out if needed and consider adding 10 to 15 minutes before you start writing to reread the last chapter you wrote. Don't edit it. Just skim through it to get your mindset back into the writing zone. Having a calendar not only gives you a visual for your writing schedule, but it also gives you a place to write down your daily word counts and your chapter progress. And finally, the last checkbox in the last week, meal planning. This might not seem relevant to prepping your story for NaNoWriMo, but every minute counts when you're trying to reach your 50,000 word goal. Planning your meals out ahead of time will help you free up more time to write. You can use another calendar or a blank sheet of paper or a new document, whatever works best for you. I used to meal plan every week, and it's a lot of work to plan out every single meal. So I'm not saying do it all the time, but planning out what you'll be making each night during NaNoWriMo will help you remember what time you need to start cooking or what time you'll need to pick up dinner. It all comes back to time management. I do have a meal planning worksheet / grocery list maker on my Etsy page. I find that bringing a list with me to the grocery store helps me to remember everything I need for the week, meals, snacks, kids' lunches, etc. If it's not on the list in my hand, then chances are I'm going to forget about it. And lastly, don't forget to check in with your writing friends. Remember to cheer each other on throughout the NaNoWriMo month. And also, you know what's coming. Don't forget to clean up your writing area because next week you'll be taking the elaborate outline, chapter summaries, character profiles, world building notes, and all that research you did during Preptober to good use for when you sit down and start writing that story. Writing a story isn't easy, but you can make it easier by planning and outlining ahead of time. And you don't have to follow my Preptober list. You can make up your own process. Find what works best for you. Though I do hope that this Preptober breakdown checklist I've created for the month before NaNoWriMo helps. You can check out the full Preptober checklist listing from my Etsy page in the description below. Please share your Preptober methods in the comments below because we're all constantly learning and adapting new ways until we find the process that works best for us. There's a lot of trial and error when it comes to doing this author gig. I mean, I'm always trying new things when it comes to writing, marketing, and designing. Okay, now it is time for a Save Your Sanity quick tip. Here we are on my Instagram homepage. And if you go into your settings, and then you go into privacy, and under privacy, you can go to hidden words. And here is where you could manage your list of custom words and phrases. So this is where you can view the list, and these are all the ones I currently have. So whenever somebody comments with these specific phrases or words, they get blocked. So I don't constantly see all that spam. All you do is add new words up at the top, phrases, and no more spam. Well, you'll still get spam, but you just won't see it. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and ring that cute little bell to get notifications whenever I upload a new video. If you're on Instagram, check out my page. I'm at kgrymes.writes, and don't forget to keep reading, keep writing, and keep moving forward. Till next Thursday.